So if you're wondering, kind of, we just sneaked in this talk from yesterday to make sure you get to dinner in time yesterday, but we still are doing very good today, so that's why we're here now. So LibreCores, you have seen the logo somewhere. You have stickers outside. Take them. Take as many as you find. Take them all home. I never want to have them back home, so because there's huge piles of stickers there, so take them. So what is LibreCores? I think most should know. So who knows what LibreCores is? A couple hands that are either too tired or don't know. So you need to go through the full introduction. That takes you 2 hours, but then we're going back to the main talk, so no worries. In general, kind of LibreCores is a community site that essentially bundles resources that this community, as sitting in this room, as also it extends beyond this room, kind of has put together. So kind of this one place where you can go and get started with digital design, with chip design, basic design, with FPGA, things like that. Starting from the software, from the tooling area, and going mainly also into the IP and core thingies. The main idea that we're looking at is sharing. So sharing, as I said, kind of documentation, sharing code, making it easier to reuse things, to learn from others, learn from what worked well and what didn't work well, to have sharing, of course, of code, and also possibilities to engage, to have conversations. And for example, some of the mailing lists, for example, the mailing list address that Tim posted before is hosted on LibreCores. So this is, for example, one thing that we provide. So what we have achieved so far, it's of course a vision that's going further than what we have today. The LibreCores.org site is up and running. It has been that for 2 years. I think we launched it in Bologna at ORConf. We have a bit of documentation content. It could always be more. So we have documentation on how to host things for people that are totally new to GitHub. It's kind of, for me, also coming from a software world, it's kind of totally unimaginable that somebody has not heard about GitHub or Git before. But then you talk to more hardware-focused developers and see, what is this Git thingy even at? So it's kind of things that I and maybe many others in the room take for totally granted are not that granted, especially in the hardware design world. We have Planet LibreCores, which is not a own planet that takes you very far away, but it's actually a combination, a collection of blog posts. It's done automatically, so it's a blog aggregator that kind of collects blogs from all around the community. If you have yours not up there, let me know. So for example, this is a screenshot from yesterday. For example, we had a pulp thingy there. We have a very later 4.002 released, and there is kind of all other news that are just showing up. So you can take that as an RSS feed or watch it in your browser and get kind of the aggregation of what's going on in the world around you. The other thing that was mentioned already yesterday is our El Correo Libre newsletter that kind of takes a more editorial approach, kind of has human beings behind the aggregation of news stories, and just gives you every month, I think the top 10 or roughly like that, interesting stories from what happens around the community, including a tutorial. So we had that set up. You also find it in the Planet, or you can go to medium.com/LibreCores, and you find it there. And there should also be a link how to get that news as a newsletter into your email box in case you don't have enough mails yet. And of course, the most, probably the thing that got us started on LibreCores is the project repository, which is a site that hosts all kinds of IP cores, but as well could be software or tooling that is related to that. And we have if you have seen other project repositories, be it for Node.js, NPMs, or you have it for like Puppet, where you have Puppet code, Puppet Labs, and what is it called? Puppet Hub, I think? I'm not sure. And there's PyPy for Python, and there's others as well. So kind of every more modern programming language has one of those to get easy access to third-party libraries, IPs, whatever you want to call it. And what this done is driven mainly by data that is inside a code repository already. So if you have a Git repository with your code in there, you can add essentially your project with 1 or 2 clicks, and this gets then parsed out of the README. This, for example, gets parsed out of the GitHub statistics that are, for example, open issues, issue tracker, things like that, last release, all that information. So you don't need to duplicate that in LibreCores, but we take it from existing sources. Since last year, thanks to Amitosh, we worked on Google Summer of Code last year. We got a lot of code metrics that are taken out of the source code directly. So we essentially take the sources and create some nice graphs out of that. All that should help you to see, is this code possibly usable for me? So you don't need to really go ahead, kind of check it out, read through all of it, but hopefully just look at a couple graphs, or is there activity in this core? Has there been recent commits? How many people are working on that? Essentially, what bus factor does this have? And so on. What we added this year, and this was done again by a Google Summer of Code student, I'll get back to that. We have better project classification. So for those that use PyPy, have seen that before. And what we're looking at is here. So you have this hierarchy. So you have tool, simulation, validator, for example. Or you have a target, FPGA, Xilinx, and 7 series. You have those double columns in between. So you have essentially a hierarchy of text that you can apply. That's pretty helpful now to search for things like that. So if you want to have a core or a piece of a library that works in simulation, you just search for those 2 parts. Or you have a library that works on all Xilinx devices, you can go for that, and then, or you can go even more specific. We added a real search engine before, the one that was kind of how you would build search engines 10 years ago. Now we have kind of this autocomplete and instant search. Also, what I just talked about it before is you can kind of filter search results based on this classification. So you have this tree, say I want only the results that run on FPGAs or only that run on Xilinx FPGAs, and you can have multiple selections there. All that is powered by Algolia, so thanks to them for also giving access to their services for open source projects for free. And it was done, kind of most of the work, by Sandip as part of a Google Summer of Code project. Mentoring there also was Amitosh again, so it's a kind of a fantastic experience to have kind of previous years Google Summer of Code students coming back this year and being a mentor and being actively involved. So thanks for Google, of course, for the Google Summer of Code. So looking ahead, what are we having? So this slide is from last year, and I'm sorry that we're not done yet. So this essentially goes out to you. We have user-contributed content that we want to focus on, kind of integrate better. Could be just a like, or could be a full review text. We're still looking in ways kind of to make more project metrics available. For example, one very helpful metric is kind of the number of downloads and things like that, but getting that in an environment where just everybody copies code into their own repositories makes kind of tracking this and also dependencies very hard. And kind of building a dependency between projects requires something that many other kind of language ecosystems have. So with NPMs and that, you have kind of a pretty explicit dependency tracking. This is not there yet for IP, so let's see. LibreCores CI was mentioned also before, so this is still kind of lingering around. We didn't get around to kind of completely finish it yet. I think there is also work done that needs to be on a job description format, things like that. So that's opportunities to join. And of course, I had this slide always because I definitely like this cat. Add your project to LibreCores today. Some of the features that we have seen are currently only in the staging instance. They will move to the real production instance in the next couple of days. And yeah, add it today. It's really, if you have it on your core already on GitHub, it's 2 clicks, and that's it. You can join. All of LibreCores is also the homepage kind of that you see is open source. You can find that on GitHub. You find there an overview how to contribute, chat, lists, whatever you need, or talk to me in person later on. Thanks.
Thank you, Philipp.
This might have been explained before, but how would you guys compare yourself to OpenCores?
I might want to leave that question up to Andrea sitting there. So OpenCores had a long period that was not that actively developed. This has changed now. OpenCores has new owners. I don't know the explicit kind of the direction they will take. And let's see. So currently, essentially, it's one alternative. It's having a different approach, especially since we, for example, don't do code hosting. We also don't want to do code hosting. So we have a tighter integration into kind of, for example, GitHub systems. And yeah, that can be both. Kind of, you can have, for example, your code hosted at OpenCores and reference it to on LibreCores as a kind of a reference there.
Yeah, for example, there is like you can not only host, like have GitHub projects on LibreCores, but from other sources, and one is OpenCores. So I think the main differentiator is really like LibreCores sees itself more like as a meteor site, right? This is like just the big umbrella where you can just go and get the right links, right? This is the idea, and get an impression about, is this something that's interesting to me? And I think this is more the focus that we put, and I think OpenCores, but as said, we will see where it goes. It's more about code hosting and ideas around maybe also curated IP, from my understanding. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add up there?
Andrea, maybe you want to say hi? Good.
Maybe we can talk offline.
Yeah. Yes, so this is Andrea. He's the new owner of OpenCores. So I think there's a good chance to chat around it. Other questions? Chris?
Do you have any stats on usage? Or like how
So the question was, do I have any stats on usage? I could have them. I didn't look at them more recently. There is not that many projects there yet, mostly due to me not very actively outreaching to people or kind of somebody else doing it. So yeah, I think we had a lot of kind of focus on the tech side now, and the outreach needs to get better. And maybe that's also what kind of everybody here definitely can join doing, since it's just one person, like you. Perfect.
So we could either invite people to put their IP on it or get in touch why they didn't. Like, this is also important information to us, right? We think it has a high value to put it there. We think there's good features to come. We understand if you say it's not there yet for me, right? That's okay.
And open bug reports, that's important, always important. Tim.
So this is mainly a website for finding stuff. Does it integrate with anything else to make it really easy to use the stuff that's found, like something like FuSoc or other tools, and how do you do that?
So the idea is, well, there is currently no of that integration, since I don't know any tool that would kind of make use of such a repository site currently that is, or even a kind of standardized build tool that is used in a hardware environment. So FuSoc could be one of those directions. I think there's a couple other ones. And kind of LibreCores has some APIs available, and we are kind of open to make kind of more APIs available that kind of go into this direction. I thought about some of those integrations, and we actually had one Google Summer of Code proposal going on. So essentially, it's not a lack of technical things, but mostly lack of time. But this is a area I would love to see improved.
So we had a proposal for Google Summer of Code this year, which we didn't do in the end. And the idea is really that, so we extend FuSoc so that it can fetch directly from LibreCores. So you can do just FuSoc build and then use the vendor library name, and then you just get it right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like PyPy then in the end. So you could just say FuSoc build, and then it fetches all the dependencies. We build the dependency tree. So the LibreCores website will take care of capturing dependencies, interpreting the FuSoc files, and providing like curated FuSoc files via the API. I'm pretty confident that we can at least start it the next year. We found that Google Summer of Code is like the perfect place to get people to do that. Unfortunately, this year it didn't happen. Hopefully next year. Then.
So let me provide answers to two questions that were just asked. One question was how well populated the database is, and I'd like to think that an easy way to measure how well populated the database is How many serial ports are in there? I just did a search on serial ports within LibreCores the other day, and I found mine was the only one in there. So it is not a very populated database. There isn't that much work there now, or there isn't that much that I found other than the one. This is just one metric, okay? You could argue others. Let me give you the other question, and then if you want to argue others, go ahead. But the other answer I had was I initially put all of my code onto LibreCores, and then I was disappointed to find that all of the code was given very poor ratings because I don't necessarily have a lot of pull requests or a lot of issues. And that's not because the code doesn't work. And it's not because the code isn't very good. And so I'm not very excited in adding more to LibreCores as a result. So just to answer two of the questions that came up.
Well, to go back to that, I think we had the, and what you're referring to is essentially the stars that are seen there. This is, yeah, this one. This is calculated, and I think I definitely said it last year when we introduced this. It's kind of a first try of kind of compressing all this information that is there and making it available at one kind of quick look. So this is not perfect. And that's what I'm kind of already asked last year. We need kind of input how to improve that. And for example, your input is extremely valuable in this case. But it would be even more valuable if you could kind of channel it through us to a bug report. So we can at least have a chance to have a look at that. This would be fantastic.
I think also coming back to what you said, or do next year's user-generated feedback, I think this is much more valuable than the auto-generated stars. I'm even in favor of combining / deprecating one of them.
And I think definitely one problem with that is it's not really actionable as it is today. So the way of thinking could be improve this, just remove the rating as it is, and kind of make it a kind of, you could make your code better by, for example, doing this or that, adding a README, adding a license file, things like that. So kind of making actionable to the code author actually. But there is other ideas, and we need input on.
So this is my project. It's 3 out of 5 stars, and this is. Why?
Yeah, it's perfect, yeah. That's okay.
So anybody else?
I'm not seeing it right now.
What's that?
I'm not seeing the stuff right now.
That's good.
That was good.
So why do you require projects to actively join LibreCores rather than, say, auto-importing them from GitHub and then just let people claim them? Because like if you search now for like I2C, there's no I2C core, and like there are hundreds of those on GitHub. And I would never think to put an I2C core on LibreCores. And like PyPy is kind of a default option. You don't really do anything to get PyPy. You just say upload and you're done. So I was kind of wondering.
Yeah. So we had this discussion repeatedly, and actually the technology is there to actually do exactly what you say, kind of just make them there and give people the ability to kind of claim this is my project. The problem with that is we had very agreements in both directions. That we had some people that say, in no case you should actually add my stuff without my real kind of consent in this way. And kind of we wanted to avoid stepping on people's toes there. But the other thing is how to get kind of this initial amount of content right. So the tricky balance to find here is how to avoid kind of to upset people, at the same time provide good content. And I'm not sure, so.
Yeah, so we got very strong opinions of people saying, I don't want it listed on LibreCores without my consent, which means to us, if we put course on moderation, we have to actively involve with all the core maintainers, which is a lot of work, right? And we will do this more active now.
Who said that?
There were people that said like,
I can tell you
I don't
later
want
on.
us.
like 4 people?
Yeah, but that's enough. Like if they go on Twitter and shitstorm us, like.
Question over there.
It's easy to ask for.
Okay. Right, so if you auto-import, don't publish it, send them an email. If they decline, then it doesn't get, it's not publicly visible, but everyone else is visible. And then the next question is, what do they care about a inadvertent disclosure, they decline to be listed, because that'll be implicit.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't add any information that's not already there, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
think we will be more
definitely think that
aggressive
there's a space to explore there, and we will definitely go in this direction. Thanks.
So we were hoping until now that it just comes by itself, but we increasingly learn we have to put more work into getting cores on.
Good. I think we need to move on.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Philipp.